Thank you, everybody. We're back, and we have our second speaker of the presentation. I'm really excited to introduce Jane Galena, Miss Airplane Jane. Jane, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Dan. It's very, very exciting to be here. Ladies, thank you for coming and learning about trading and investing. As you can see, this is a little bit about my story, basically my trading journey that really started about a year ago actively as far as a day trader. And what really got me into it was a life of financial freedom, basically of being in control and being able to control my financial future, to have a better quality of home life for my family. As you can see, I'm expecting number 2 right now. And it really came about after 6 months after the birth of my first daughter. I wanted to get into trading, and my husband had reminded me about that, but it's really empowering to be able to control your future as far as making sure that you know where you're going with your future to help your family, to help yourself, to help the legacy that you're going to leave for your family later on in the future, to be able to have free time to do whatever you want in life. You're not, the way that I trade, you're not stuck to a computer 8 hours a day. You have flexibility. And out here on the West Coast, it's even better because the market opens at 6:30 in the morning, and I trade an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. So you can be done by 9 o'clock and do another job if you really wanted to. And it's really about the ability to do everything that you want in life. You're gonna be able to achieve things that you thought you might not have thought were possible before. So how I learned about the stock market was basically my childhood experience from my family. My family were, they were always value investors. My grandparents started off buying, say, like Union Pacific when it first opened up. And they had that long-term buy and hold perspective of stocks. And really, that worked, for the long term, but then the market's really changed. The internet has changed it. Constant news has changed it. Twitter has changed it in that everybody reacts so much more quickly. Yes, you can still buy things long term and hold it if you want to do that, but I wanted to be much more proactive in my trading, and I wanted to do it more on a day-to-day basis so that it wasn't just buy, hold 5 years, look for 5% return, and be happy with that. Annually.
Jane, when we prepared for the show, you had mentioned to me that, one of the things that made you comfortable about investing the way you did was that you actually did have some success doing longer-term investing. Maybe you could share a little bit about that with the audience so that they know that success doesn't always have to come in the flavor of super active. That there's a starting point, and it's for everybody, the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. My family, they had taught me, I grew up at the breakfast table. My parents had the Wall Street Journal out, and I started asking questions. I'm like, what's a PE? What is this? What's this, the bid, the ask? And they educated me on the value investing. So that was young, 6 or 7, I started learning about that. And of course, you go through college, everything. They talk about long-term investing. And I went into, my second job out of college was actually working at a brokerage firm. And I then really began investing more for myself, more long-term holdings. And then once I'll give you a little spiel later of how I came to Canada. But when I was there, I bought $25,000 worth of American Airlines when it was bankrupt. And I'd seen, I did my research. That was more the fundamental side of it, doing the research of the company, seeing what was going to happen to the future of the company. It was a major airline that had been bought out by US Airways. They were going through a merger, and they had the lawyers that put together Sirius and XM Radio, which is basically a monopoly now. And I thought, well, if they have those lawyers behind it, how is this really going to fail, right? They've got these bigwig lawyers that are going to create this merger. And within 9 months, that $25,000 turned into $250,000. And it was great. At the time, my husband had some misfortune with his job. He was unemployed. And it happily gave us 3 months of time, no issues whatsoever, no worries, because we had that capital that we'd banked. And so I put that aside. I was pregnant with the first child, And then I was into real estate in the States before I moved to Canada. And I thought, okay, I want to get back into real estate. Well, I live in Montreal, Quebec, and you have to have French as a primary language as well. So I went through my training, passed the real estate exam, which I loved real estate. My daughter was born, and I had some issues with her health, and I wasn't able to pass my French exam, which was a second criteria to get my license. So I was frustrated at the time, and I thought, man, what am I going to do? And I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which really inspired me to find a job that I could do anywhere in the world, right? If you can set up a business to run it through a computer, you can do it anywhere. You have a mobile office. And my daughter had health issues, so I wanted to be home for her. I wanted to be there, be present. God forbid something were to happen. Thankfully, she's happy and healthy today watching. And I wanted to find something. So I was a little depressed and frustrated. My husband said, honey, remember what you did with your value investing? Why don't you go back to that? I thought, that's a great idea. But I don't want to do it where I sit, put my money in 9 months later. Maybe it'll make amazing returns. Maybe it'll make 2 to 5%. So I thought, I need to start researching. And that was February of 2015. And I started researching online. And I found Timothy Sykes' tools about day trading. And I started studying. And immediately, because my daughter was 6 months old at the time, I had a $6,000 account, and I started trading, and I didn't study that much. I was like, I got this, no problem. Well, no, I didn't. I went right through that $6,000 because I didn't follow any rules. I didn't study the market. I didn't move forward with knowledge first.
Well, Jane, let me, while you're there, I wanted to kind of point something out to the audience, and that is that, interestingly, and one of the reasons, again, why we're having this event is because think about how Sherry, in order to start investing for herself, she was fully immersed in the stock market on the business side. And she was also licensed. There's an interesting coincidence here. Jane, too, who later became involved in the stock market, and we're going to talk about her success, but she also, through Smith Barney, had gotten a license and was a little bit more immersed than the average person gets to. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this event, is that it shouldn't have to take the fortune of having to have been in the business to learn the fact that being in the stock market is empowering, it's rewarding, and it's really one of the places where you can make the kind of returns that you really cannot make anywhere else. And just again, as we segue to the rest of your presentation, think about this audience. From approximately 1996 to 2000, Dell Computer returned close to 36,000%. There is no house that's going to do that. There is no currency, there's no yield that's going to do something like that. The incredible thing, and why I'm so excited to not only do this event, but be in the market at this time, is because the stock market, ladies, is the currency of innovation. All the things that we are excited about, as Sherry had said, the Amazons that we use to buy our foods, and the Whole Foods that we want to become, that we purchase more healthy things at, all of these things, they're driving innovation. And the companies that are looking for the cure for cancer or Alzheimer's, or how about the self-driving cars, they are all in the stock market. And through, again, Jane's experience and what she's going through now, I think one of the interesting lessons is, aside from simply making money, is you're in touch with this innovation. You become invested and see for yourself the incredible things that are possible. I still get chills when I think about what you can do. And this is about wealth creation. Again, that's what happened to Bill Gates. That's what happened to Warren Buffett. And to an extent, that's what happened to Sherry. And Sherry and both Jane, now they have that ability to take their previous experience of being vested, being in the markets, and transform them into even a living or the financial freedom, or again, a supplemental aspect of the living where you really can, again, gain some things in your life that you've never had before. So continue, please.
Definitely. And for me, I mean, Dan goes back to my history. Basically, I graduated with an international business degree. My first job out of college was banking, and I lived in Memphis. I've lived quite a various of places. And after about a year and a half, I said, you know what? I'm from Washington, D.C. originally. I want to move somewhere different. So I moved to Atlanta, and I started working with Smith Barney at the time, and I got my Series 7 license, which is what you need to be able to trade as a broker. And I was working with 3 different brokers at the time, and I had one broker that had been there for 25 years, Richard Gradzicki, a great guy, and he had asked me to partner with him and take over his book. I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. This is wonderful. I'm basically getting handed all these clients, and I could have, wealth at my fingertips. And then I saw that they had the WorldCom options office there in that office. And I saw devastation happen because they had had options for the employees, that they could have exercised the options and then taken the money. But what they did was they borrowed against it. They used margin, and they borrowed against it. And they used it for things like they went out, they bought, luxury items, boats, they did renovations on their houses, everything like that. And sometimes what you'll see is a stock will drop overnight with valuation, right? And it was a dot-com bubble had burst at that time. And so I saw the stock, I don't remember the valuation at the time, it might have been like 24 down to 4. So then they were on margin, they had taken credit out against this stock. And I saw the devastation of people losing their homes because they were getting margin calls from the brokerage firm calling in saying, hey, you need to pay back this money that you borrowed from us. And they didn't have the money at the time because they didn't exercise their options that they had with the company. So that really made me think about it and say, well, do I want to deal with other people's money and put, seeing that devastation, or do I want to follow my passion of culinary school? So I went to Europe for a year, and I went to culinary school. And I went back to Philadelphia, and I worked in the restaurant world as a pastry chef. And as a business owner, you have to pay for your own health insurance. So I worked at customer service at US Airways at the time. And it was great. It was a union job, $25. I could travel the world, too. I did that with my ex-husband, and it ended up falling apart. I went into real estate and loved real estate. And while I was working at US Airways in Philadelphia, I met my current husband, who's in Montreal, Canada, which is how I ended up there. Kept the job so that once I had a job once I crossed the border. Then I had my daughter and started on the journey of trading after my husband had reminded me. So I definitely had a little bit of the financial background, but it was always value investing at that time. And I wanted to be proactive. I wanted to move forward. And Dan had asked me, how did being a woman in the trading world affect me? Well, to me, I didn't see anything. I've never had the mindset that I can't do something because I'm a woman. I never thought, okay, maybe physical strength, but that's about it. I've always thought, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. And I think that came from running my first marathon, that it takes baby steps to get to your ultimate goal. But really, you put the biggest hurdles in your brain. And if you can remove those hurdles, those fears, you can move forward to whatever your goal is, whatever your dream is. You just put your energy there bit by bit, day by day. And I saw online one of Timothy Sykes' big lines is, "Are you going to be my next millionaire student?" And I thought, I can do this, no problem. So I started studying, and I didn't really see until I started seeing on Twitter my followers, that 12% of them were women. And I thought, this just isn't right, We are equal. Everybody's the same behind the computer. Everybody can do it if you have that drive and you have that passion and that energy to learn. And so I thought, well, Dan and I had talked about it, and really there's no reason why women aren't as represented. It's a mental thing. We can all do it. As long as you take the time to learn and move forward, you can do it as well. So back to my educational experience. So really, the biggest surprises that I had when I was learning were just learning all the lingo. It's a big, huge learning curve to break into the more active intraday trading. Now, in trading, you can be a long-term value investor. You can be a swing trader. You can be an intraday trader. You go with what feels comfortable to you. It's not something that you have to fit into one category. It's you do what's in your comfort zone. And so the biggest thing was learning the market lingo really right off the bat, learning what everything meant. Then it was the ability to make a 6-figure salary and just $400 of consistent profit a day, which is definitely doable. Once you start learning about it, you start practicing, you start seeing it, you can do it very, very easily, but it's a matter of opening your eyes to the knowledge of it. You have to be able to be aware of what you can do.
You have to believe it's possible.
Yeah.
And the media, and one of the things that we talk about in our first slides is that so many things are geared in the industry to keep you from the truth of it's possible. Nobody says that making money in the stock market is easy, because in general, making money anywhere is not super easy unless you already have it. But the point of the matter is that it is possible, and the stock market is a place that can give you unusual returns. One of the things that I loved about Jane coming here and talking to you is that everybody here can see that Jane is pregnant. And you know, I had mentioned in my opening monologue about the fact that what is this thing that women have? What is this innate quality that women possess that, in my opinion, give them an edge as investors versus men? Well, if you think about the way men approach the market, and you hear something like this: I got to beat the market. I got to beat the S&P. Did you see me in this trade? I killed it. Well, you know, we want to beat something, we want to kill something. I mean, this is our kind of primary instinct. But the truth of the matter is, your account, or the money that you have in your account that you're managing, is much more like a child. And a child is something that you nurture. And by the way, a child is not just plain and easy, always going forward. There's steps to the right, steps to the left, and adjustments that you have to make. But women have the instinct. They know innately what that's like in a way that men can never even begin to appreciate. And that's why, to me, it was such a, I mean, this was, by the way, coincidental that Jane happened to have been pregnant at the time that we wanted to do this conference. It wasn't about that. But it's such a beautiful metaphor that here's a woman who is succeeding in the stock market in arguably the more difficult kind of way that, you know, that you try to succeed. You have so many things in front of you. You've got another child, just like every other woman or potential investor. You can be either married or you're single. Your kids are in school or they're out of school, but you can still do it. It's not difficult. That's the thing. Fear is the enemy. It's not difficult to start investing for yourself. That's really what we're all about. And Jane's just an incredible example of how a little determination can go to such a long way.
She's moving.
So keep going.
So basically, that's a lot of it, is that you are dealing with your own psychology, right? Because it's you behind the screen in the market. Unless you're in a trading room or a chat room, it's really you and the data in front of you. So when you start trading, you're going to see that it becomes a reflection of you. How you fear things in life. If you're scared of getting out of, say, a bad relationship, you might not get out of a bad trade right away and cut your losses, because it's just something that you haven't learned that pathway in your brain yet. Okay, it's going to be better if I cut it quickly, you know, I'm going to be able to proceed forward.
It reflects yourself. Yeah. It's your own fingerprint. I love that you said that. I mean, nobody trades the same.
So basically, I came up with a timeline for success, for getting into trading. Really, you want to find someone that you trust in your trading community and study from their experiences. Because just like I said, everybody is different. So you need to find someone that's going to match your personality. You might be an adrenaline junkie, and you might want to go, you know, with really quick trades that are scalping. Or you might be more passive and long-term and making a decision about things in life. So swing trading might be better. You want to start practicing with paper trading to learn. It's a lot better to practice with fake money, monopoly money, than your own money. Go ahead and learn the mistakes and get it out of the way. It's like when you're doing driver's ed. You want to be able to go ahead and practice with someone next to you instead of just going out and crashing and burning right at the, you know, when you first get your license. You want to practice with the right tools. You want to practice with scanning tools so you can find the stocks that are active, and you'll see that as you progress. You know, if you get into a stock that has zero volume in it, it's going to be really hard to get out as well. So you want to be able to find the stocks, especially for intraday trading, which is one of the great things about Trade Ideas that I love, is that you can see when there's high volume for a stock so that you can see if there's a lot of activity on Twitter, which is a big source, and StockTwits, which is a big source of information if there's a lot of activity, that means that there's going to be a lot of volume typically behind it as well. And it's going to make that stock more volatile for the day, easier to get in and out. You're not going to be stuck holding it. Okay, so maybe there's 1,000 shares or 10,000 shares that are traded that day and you buy 1,000 shares. Well, you're 10% of the market for that day. Whereas if it's being traded 10 million shares and you buy 1,000 shares, it's a lot easier to get in and out. You want to find your fingerprint strategy, as we were talking about, because you're different from the person next to you. And how you deal with risk tolerance is going to be very different. What makes you comfortable to sleep at night, especially with your own hard-earned money, is that you want to be able to sleep at night with your decisions. And so you have to find your fingerprint strategy. Once you're able, you figure out with paper trading, you have the tools that you like, you find your strategy that works with you, then you start with the small money. There's no reason to jump in with large amounts of money right off the bat. It's starting small, becoming consistent and confident, because when you have that confidence, it's a lot easier to go larger in your position sizing and then have larger profits as well. But you've had the practice along the way. 90% of people fail because they don't put in the time and effort. They don't sit there and study and learn. And that's what a lot of it is about. It's if you were to go out and be, a fitness model, you're not going to do it tomorrow. You're going to have to go out. It's me too. You're going to have to go out. You're going to have to put in the time and effort, the right nutrition, the right workouts, everything to make it happen. With any profession, same thing. If you're going to be a surgeon, you don't go, all right, hey, let me operate on your liver tomorrow, Dan. I'm great. I studied it on WebMD.
Nice.
You're not going to do that. You have to put the time and energy into it. And it's not anything that's get quick overnight. It can happen, but those are more...
That's luck.
Yeah, it's luck in the market, the right place at the right time. And then I say carpe profit, one trade at a time, to grow your account, because that's what it takes. Consistency, making profits, keeping those profits larger than your losses, and just take them. Don't be overly greedy. It's going to grow, and believe in yourself. So in finding a mentor, you want to, like I said, find someone that's like-minded. Make sure that their risk tolerance is similar to yours, and someone you'd want to have a friend to call on. If you were having a bad day, would you let that person in? I'm very real about what I do with my trades on Twitter. I'm Airplane Jane, Jane _. You can also see my blog there, cjanetrade.com, and Airplane Jane on YouTube. And I share all of that. It's the real experience, and you want to be able to talk to someone. If you have a bad day, if you have a trading buddy, you want to be able to have someone that you want to have a support network behind you too, if you're going into this, say, full-time. As a part-time profession to grow extra money for a trip, whatever it is, whatever your goal, it helps to have a network and a community that's behind you. As with anything that you do in your life, right? You want to have a community that cares about what you're doing. So then you want to go into paper trading. Practice with fake money. Best thing about this is you're going to learn how to deal with software, because it's information about the market that you have to learn. You have to learn how to put in trades. What type of trades are there? What's a limit order? What's a market order? What's a stop limit? And you have to figure all that out. And many systems like Thinkorswim will teach you how to use their software, but it's also practicing with timing to enter and exit the trades, because you can find a stock that's trading that day. Great. Now, if you get in and it's gone up, well, whoops, you made a mistake. Your entry was wrong. So you can practice that and test out different softwares. See what you like. Just like there's different platforms for Microsoft, everything, you can test different softwares. See what works for you, because it's something that you have to figure out. Okay, well, maybe I like the charting on this software, or I like how the executions go with this one.
It seems like right now in our environment, because it's 2016, there's really nothing that stands in your way because the fees are the lowest they've ever been. In fact, there's brokers right now, for example, like Robinhood Brokerage. Sherry had mentioned earlier about E-Trade. Another broker, Robinhood Brokerage, they don't charge anything for commissions. The trades are free. That's how competitive the marketplace is. There's nothing that's keeping you from being able to try, and then if you are wrong, to pull back. So what I'm going to do, and Jane's going to, again, I believe confirm it, but I'm going to reveal the secret to making money in the stock market. It's never been unknown. Here's the secret to successful investing. Don't lose big. The problem happens here. People don't exactly know what lose big means. And then once they accidentally do lose big or start to lose, they are unable to, as we talked about earlier, to exit. It's that simple. If you can take control over your emotions and simply execute a very basic strategy of, I don't want to lose a lot of money, and define what that is, you will be successful. It's that simple. The problem is our own egos and our own psychological makeup, and of course the fact that you're surrounded by a culture that says, give your money to someone else, give it, you don't know what you're doing. The reason you're not making money is because you're not in this, or that. Did you consider the taxes? There's all this stuff that gets thrown at you that ultimately really just becomes barriers between you and making a more informed financial decision. That's what we're here to demystify. I mean, that's why we brought Jane in, because she gives you that personal example, and what she's doing now, in fact. And these are the things that were not available when Sherry and I were doing our consulting business before, is that so much information from a community standpoint exists in social media, in various forums, like, for example, Trade Ideas. We have a free forum where we encourage all investors who are active in the markets to simply come in. We have a moderator, and people share their ideas. There's no price for this, because the idea is the community helps one another, becomes a meritocracy. And when people share, one of the reasons I know that Jane journals and is a blogger about her own journey is it's a reflective process. You do this so that you're kind of, imagine you are a teacher, whether you're teaching other people or not, but you teach so that you yourself are not making the mistakes. It's very easy in a vacuum to find yourself in some position. You're like, oh, this will work out. You walk away, because that's what we like to do. Then you come back and you're like, oh man, now I'm really down more than I wanted to be down. Okay, well, I got to wait this out. I mean, this, in my 20 years in the business, this is the one thing that causes people to lose money. Not being able to quickly get out of a situation that goes the wrong way. And that's why I keep going back to highlighting the nurture instinct of women and their ability to not need to beat anything, to move in sync. Here's something else that I think is kind of interesting about everything you said, but most people don't really discuss. I'm going to throw out Albert Einstein for us. Relativity, okay? So as it turns out, valuations are relative. There's no really, people say, well, what works in the stock market? Is it fundamental information? Is it technical analysis? Is it news? Is it earnings? Is it a takeover? The truth is all of those, and sometimes none. It's a combination of where you happen to find yourself. Sherry did very well in her purchase of Amazon, but had she possibly bought some other stock, it could have gone in a different direction. Or there might have been somebody who had bought Amazon much earlier, like at the beginning of the dot-com bubble, when Amazon was expensive and then crashed quite a bit. So those people didn't have that relativity. So market valuations and a stock's behavior is always relative to your vantage point. That's the thing that to me goes so kind of unnoticed. And that's why I think people are always, being pushed to throw their money in with the mutual funds. I mean, think about how that, you become kind of like a part of a blob that's out there. You don't know, you're not involved at all. It's like, in a world of self-driving cars, you're saying to yourself, I can only take the bus, with other people, because the bus driver knows where he's going. But you guys know about bus drivers. You hear the news. So that relativity, that perspective, it gives you a very unique sense of what's happening with an investment. Again, it becomes your own fingerprint, it's your own experience, and you ought not be afraid.
And something that, part of the reason why I'm here too is because when I first started, I went on Twitter because I heard, okay, great, Twitter's a great place to go and find out information. I went to my husband, I'm like, look, honey, I have 10 followers. This is great, it's amazing. Today, this past week, I just broke over 7,000 because I'm sharing in real time what I'm doing. And slowly but surely, as I started out, I'd say back in March, I talked to Dan too and demoing his software. And really, I found there's not a lot of women in trading, in day trading. And so I wanted to try to empower and encourage more women to get into it. And I thought the best way to do this is to share my experience because it's a real experience. I'm also working on a book about female day traders because there's not anything really out there to open the eyes to women. And slowly but surely, as my followers have asked, I give back. It's that nurturing nature because you want to naturally help. Well, I want to naturally help. And so slowly but surely, I developed my blog where I write my stories once a week. I do a YouTube channel as well so that I can share, what's happened to me over the week. What was my experience? What do I see going forward in the next week? And it's all just happened naturally because I want to help. I want to help empower women to get more into the market. It is definitely something that is personal. It's your strategy, like I said here, that you need to figure out, okay, well, I'm really busy. I can't intraday trade, so maybe I'll do a trade that's going to set up for a week, which is definitely possible. You just have to learn how to do it. And you definitely want to look at your risk to reward ratio because if something is going to give you $2, but you're going to risk $5, well, does that make a good logical decision to get into that stock? Probably not. But is that stock down and you have the potential to make $10 a share and you're going to risk going down $1? Well, that's pretty good. So you have to learn how to assess that, figure out what your comfort zone is, figure out your timing in the market, figure out how much time you can devote to each trade. And once you start with your real money, make sure that you start out with smaller positions. Get used to the actual trades. Again, you're going to have software that you're learning. And so do that and practice your consistency. Because right off the bat, 50-50, right? Odds. Like going to Vegas. Well, that's always in the odds of the house. But you have a 50-50 chance of that trade winning for you. So why not look at the research behind it? Figure out what type of trading strategy you have and make the odds in your favor. I tend to like to trade reversals because I know from my math experience that the outliers of the bell curve are not going to stay out there. Just the probability they're going to come back to the middle. So when you see a stock that's at a big extreme for the day, if anybody knows about Dries, where it went from $4 to $115 about 2 weeks ago, it's right back down to where it came from. And that's a classic example of a bell curve, right? It went to an extreme, which was an outlier for it, and it couldn't sustain it. There was no reason, so it came right back down.
But by the way, in between 4 and 115, there was right about a lifetime of returns on those 5 days. So that's
when you're on the right side of the trade.
When you're on the right side. But there were people, and that's the thing. There was no prohibitive sneak like, back when I was learning to invest with my friends, and there was the IPO market. It always used to bother me because people would be like, look at this stock, first day of investing, and it's up 45 points. But that was never the case because that was the difference between, the price that they got the money at
Yep.
and then the opening price. And you're like, well, individual investors could have never had that. So you have to kind of keep it very real. And you have this ability in the market that just simply doesn't exist anywhere else. That's why we're so adamant about give it a try. There's no risk for you to try small. And when you're talking about the issue of risk reward. That's all about that personal experience. It's all about, people ask me, like, why do I hold a position overnight or not? And I say, well, it's very simple. It's just a matter of risk tolerance. What can my account sustain? What am I willing to lose? That's how it's done. And it's the same, again, the same way as you raise a child. You set the program up, so it's like, okay, well, if you want to go in the backseat of a motorcycle, you know, with a gang, I don't think I'm going to let you do that. And there's metaphorical things in the stock market that are the same things. You know, you learn not to take risky behavior, or if you do it with very small amounts of money, so that if you happen to be right, well, then you can leverage it.
Yeah, and you always want to try to keep those profits, cut the losers. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. And having, you know, being a trader, you can easily do this with a family. I mean, I'm living proof, right? I have one daughter, another one on the way, and it's something where you can have returns that you would never think possible with a part-time job. You know, you can do a flexible schedule. Say my daughter's sick. Guess what? I don't go to work. I spend the day taking care of her. If I'm in a trade I've done a swing trade, I will just go ahead and probably exit and not worry about that, because number one to me is my family. That's the whole reason why I got into this. And it allows me the ability to put my family first, and it allows me the flexibility to create my own schedule. You know, if you have time with your kids throughout the day and you're only able to trade at night, well, guess what? There's other markets around the world. There's the DAX in Germany, there's the Australian market, there's the Shanghai market. So the strategies tend to work with different markets as well. It doesn't have to just be tied to the time zone of the US market. You could trade anything. Once you figure it out, the strategies will typically tend to work with all markets. All of the reactions are going to be the same. It's just learning that initial knowledge to get into the markets.
It's getting the feel to get the money to work for you wherever your comfort zone is.
Right. And something else, I'm also a pilot. I've had my license for 20 years. Which comes into the airplane, Jane. And I've done all sorts of different things, a pilot, marathon runner, everything. But when you're a pilot, you have to take risks into consideration before you take off, right? You can't go up and you're flying in the air, oh no, well, you know, okay, this engine's breaking, so I'm just gonna pull over this cloud and fix it. No, like you need to have a strategy before you get into the aircraft. You need to understand what you're doing. You have your flight plan, you do your pre-flight, everything like that. Well, it's the same with stocks. You need to have that entry and exit before you get into the trade. You need to know what you're gonna do if that trade goes against you. You need to know how you're gonna react. And as an instrument pilot, I have the ability where I've learned the skill of scanning. And I scan, and I can watch 5 stocks at a time. I can watch level 2. Which I've got my YouTube videos, which all make sense about that, as far as level 2, the different price action and everything like that. But I have that natural ability, because I learned it already in life, to scan different things and watch it all at once and see, okay, well, this is moving out of the range that I'm interested in. I need to change it. You know, I need to get out of the stock, or I need to get into the stock. And when you fly, it's your life in your hands. So it's the same thing when you trade. You know, if this is your source of income, you are in control of your financial future. You're in control of making $100 a day in an hour, 15 minutes. It's amazing. And now I'm just learning options, which is really cool. I'm really excited about that.
Well, you become kind of fluent in a language that, believe it or not, isn't difficult. That's the thing that we want to continue to reiterate. You have to learn some basics, but at the end of the day, remember that slide that we had up? Lululemon, Amazon, Netflix. These are stocks, and the reason we put them up here is because they're easy for people to relate to. And by the way, in the market, there's this jargon called FANG, which is an acronym for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. That group of stocks has really outperformed the market, because these stocks are at the head of the innovation curve. You know, Facebook is like a country, but virtually, and everybody likes to Netflix and chill. That's the other part to me of, once you realize that that's what you're doing, you're getting into the company that gives you Netflix and chill, it kind of shatters the mythos of like, oh, what are these numbers that are flickering, whatever. What you realize is that, and this is kind of something that I've always thought, imagine eBay, but sped up, where you're seeing everything happening. Like, people are coming in, like, on eBay, you see a product and they're like, okay, this thing's going on for like 15 hours, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna bid, and then you're checking, and it's like, literally everything is in slow motion. But the stock market's kind of very similar, except you see a bid, and then there's an offer, and sometimes they match, and then a transaction happens, all of a sudden another thing happens. So it's eBay, but sped up to real time. And once you start getting these mnemonics, you become really comfortable, and things that Jane is saying become, they're afterthoughts versus obstacles.
Right.
And those are the things that we want to highlight in this Empowering Women Investor event. We want to say that you have these instincts that make you better at it to some extent, and it's a shame that the industry does everything in its power to keep you out of the market.
And definitely, as far as, women in general have less testosterone. So we have less of that ego, like, I need to beat the market. We're more rational. We're going to typically go into a trade and be more analytical about it and look at the risk reward. It's just the nature of women. And all the women that I've spoken to for the book, they all go in with calculated risk. And it's just a matter of learning that. Just like learning any language, it's another language. And it can seem like an ocean of knowledge, but if you slowly learn it day by day, it took me about, February of 2015, and then I started really trading with real money November, and now I'm here up over probably 200,000 over the past year. So it's, my biggest win in 1 week was 12,000, which I was making 27,000 Canadian a year for my part-time job, where I was working 30 hours a week. So it's a great change to be able to have the freedom and ability. And then right after that, the next day, I lost 9,000. Because I had a superhero feeling, like, oh, this is great, I can do it, I'm amazing, I've rocked this, I can't go wrong. And that happens. That's the psychology. Yeah. It's the psychology aspect of it. So you have to keep everything in check, and you have to know when women, I feel like, are more aware of your bodies, we're more aware of our minds, and that's what a lot of it is being able to see that for ourselves and seeing how we react in a trade, and keeping those profits is the biggest thing, and cutting the losses. But basically, don't be afraid of it. The biggest hurdles in life, no matter what you're going to do and going forward, is to put that fear aside. Step out of your comfort zone. Baby step into it. Take little steps forward. If you have any kids, they didn't start running at day one. It took them a couple months. They had to crawl. They had to stumble. They had to get up and walk, take their first steps. It's the same thing. You have to get up and you have to learn. It's a matter of, if you want to make that dream and that goal happen, no matter what it is, you need to put your energy there every day, bit by bit, day by day. Just set a little goal.
Whether it's fitness or anything.
Yeah, with my marathon training, it seemed unfathomable to run 26.2 miles when I first started. And as I went through my training plan, I thought, this isn't possible. In 6 months, I'm going to run a marathon. And sure enough, now I've done 4. So you see and you know that when you put that energy day by day, it all compounds, it all grows. And your knowledge can get there no matter what it is. But especially with trading, if you want to make that your financial freedom and give yourself the flexibility, it is 100% possible. You just need to put in the time and effort.
And Jane's also a resource now where she will help you be more involved, because, again, she's blogging about it. She's using our technology, which, again, we make to empower people to make better decisions. So all of this kind of comes together. And let me just finish up with one more thing. There's a really interesting part about why it is so important for all of you to start investing versus just simply giving your money to other people. What happened in the first online revolution is that you had all these stocks that people were buying. You know, brokerage firms were coming in, trying to give people a venue where they could purchase stocks. And people were doing that. They were buying all sorts of different stocks, but they had no strategy to exit. And when the dot-com bubble burst, everybody got wiped out. Unfortunately, again, because nobody helped, there was no education on what is a strategy, how do you manage risk. And what the industry did with that is they took that as an incredible opportunity to say, you know what, the reason you guys all lost money is because you're idiots. Give us your money. And again, that whole thing started over fees, fees, fees. And while I am, you know, talking, I'm not trying to completely disparage that. I also have money managed professionally. But to only do that, it also hurts the market, because if you've got approximately 20 guys controlling where all of the stocks are going, well, that becomes kind of dangerous. The more people that participate, the more liquidity that's out there that's searching for that innovation. Remember what we were talking about. The stock market, it's the currency of innovation. You are there looking for the cancer cures. It's not just simply, you know, you're not just at the blackjack table. That's the thing. You're investing in companies that are trying to compete to do something interesting. And once you do it, you really find yourself like having a feel for not only stocks in general, but the world. Whether it's the Brexit or the election, you have a completely different perspective of the world around you when you take control in your own hands.
Definitely. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak to you. You know, it's a pleasure, and I really enjoy hearing, I mean, if you check out my blog, I really enjoy hearing back from everybody and how I can help and how I can, you know, make everyone succeed. It's an honor to hear stories. Like I heard one, unfortunately, one of my followers had said that her mother had passed away, her father had passed away, and being able to read my blogs and see my posts have helped inspire her to take control of her life over this year. And it's simple things like that. Like, I'm very thankful to hear the hormones. I'm getting emotional over it. But I'm very thankful to hear how I've touched people and helped them improve their lives. And I hope that it helps to improve your life, no matter what it is, whatever your goal is. You can do it, definitely.
Thank you, Jane.
You all. Thank you.
Thank you.